Welcome to This Week's Okay at Work with myself, Sarah Sawyer, and my colleague, Russell Berger, both attorneys at Offit Kurman. And today we are talking about the Federal Pump Act. So that is around lactation at work, and it's at the federal level. It was passed and signed into law at the end of the year, the end of 2022, and essentially covers nursing parents that are returning to work who may need to pump at work. And it protects them up to a year after they return and they've had their child. So this is something that actually the Pump Act is not that this is brand new and that the lactation protections at the office or at work or at a place of work are new. They actually did used to exist, but the Pump Act adds two um, pieces to it. One is that the way that it was drafted previously, the law was drafted previously back in 2010 when these provisions were originally provided. It actually was drafted in a way that it could be interpreted to only apply to non-exempt workers, not exempt workers. So this seeks to remedy that. And then also it provides additional ability for employees to have private causes of action against employers for violations of this law. So starting at the end of April, end of this month, that part of the law will actually come into effect where the employees will have a private cause of action and be able to go directly to the courts for violations of these laws. So that is kind of the main things here. And it's always, as we always say on OK at Work as well, whenever there's a change in the law, even if it's not a brand new law, it is time to see, are you complying with the law that existed before? And then now also with the changes to that law.
Right, right. So, I mean, in the prior law, if you interpreted, as you mentioned, where it only applies to non-exempt employees, but there's still a requirement to have a, private space that's not a bathroom for lactation breaks. If you figured out how to do that for non-exempt employees, chances are you were doing it for exempt employees as well. So that might not bring about the largest substantive change. But the real question is, are you doing it at all? Are you doing it in a compliant manner? Do you have a plan for addressing it when one of your employees needs to be able to take lactation breaks? So, like you said, Sarah, I think it's a really good time to reassess the overall operation with respect to lactation breaks, especially now because the part that is probably more concerning and more substantive to employers that were probably generally complying, even though it might not have applied previously, is the potential risk of a private cause of action if you don't comply. So now it's being done under the risk of lawsuit, which is problematic on many levels. Obviously, we've talked ad nauseum here about the perils of getting into litigation and why you want to seek to avoid it, and certainly that's true here, where not only does not complying with this law create a legal risk, it creates an employment risk because there's a lot of people, a lot of employees, a lot of potential customers that are going to have a hard time, staying engaged as employees or patronizing you as a customer if you're not, treating lactating parents in a fair and compliant manner.
Yeah, and I will say that this is something that comes up a lot when we're doing policy review because a lot of employers I don't think are familiar with these rules. So I know here in Baltimore City, there's even more stringent rules around lactation breaks and the space that you need to provide and exactly what type of space and how you meet the obligations, including obligations around there being an outlet in the room and exactly what that private space looks like. And then there are some hardship accommodations. And here in Baltimore City, we also have notice requirements around notifying employees around their rights to have lactation breaks and these safe spaces and private spaces and things. So often I'm looking at this when I'm reviewing policy documents for clients, especially ones that are located here in Baltimore City. And it's really rare that people have really put these policies in place. I mean, a lot of times I find myself adding them, even though this law has been around for a while at this point, the old version, and now, the both in Baltimore and the federal law have been around for a while. And, even though we're making changes now, it's just something that I see is often overlooked or not thought about, and isn't often put into people's handbooks. So it's an important thing to pay attention to.
Yeah, right. And sometimes maybe it doesn't belong in the handbook if you've got multiple offices and it looks a little bit, or multiple physical locations. It might look a little bit different in one location or the other. But the fact that you do have to do this should, whether it's in the handbook or not, should be on your radar, and should be implemented or implementable when when the need arises.
Good advice. So thanks, Russell, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, Sarah.